Guyana society is no different from any other society across the globe. Social services has always been a pull factor and very necessary in the modern day society as governments across the world attempt to provide as many and as comforting social services as possible. With me to discuss this issue is Minister of Human Service and Social Security, Ms. Jennifer Webster. Minister, I thank you for the opportunity to discuss this issue with me.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I am, of course, your host, Michael Gordon. If I could first ask Minister, the PPP Civic Administration, first, straight off the bat, has always boasted of its impeccable track record, the words of the PPP administration, in relation to the provision of social services to the Guyanese society. Speak a bit of your track record.
Thank you. Well, the People's Progressive Party Civic, as a government, has a proven track record. I'm going to qualify that. And I say that because over the past 2 decades, we have consistently improved upon the quality of social services we have delivered to our people in all the sectors, in human services and social security, in labor, in health, in education. And I would say that we have constantly been increasing the annual budgets of the social sector. And let me perhaps, for example, go back to the past 3 budgets. Let's take budget 2012, 2013, and 2014. Those 3 budgets have seen increases annually, totaling approximately 37% of the annual budget. And I think that in itself tells a story about where we're going and the needs of our people being met, especially those who are vulnerable within our society. Let's take, for example, the old age pension. And if I were to look back, let's say a decade ago, in 2005, pensioners were receiving $2,005. In 2006, our pensioners were receiving $3,500. In 2007, $3,670. In 2008, $6,000. 2009, $6,300. 2010, $6,600. 2011, $7,500. Then in 2012, $10,000.
Let's leapfrog into 2014, for example. What would be the figure for 2014? And as a consequence of that figure, we have heard criticisms that it's simply not enough.
Well, let me say that our government remains committed to ensuring that the welfare of the senior citizens of Guyana who have contributed to Guyana's development are taken care of. And I will say that right now we have more than 47,000 persons who are pensioners, who are beneficiaries. And I must say that that pension is non-contributory. If you become 65, you're eligible to receive that pension once you're a Guyanese and you live here. And right now, annually, that will cost the state 7.4 billion Guyana dollars. 7.4 billion of the total budget currently goes to our senior citizens as pension. And that doesn't include the water subsidies and the electricity subsidies, which we have also introduced.
Let's speak a bit about the other vulnerable groups, women and children. For example, speak a bit to the social provisions and the service provisions that have been put in place by the administration for these 2 groups.
Okay. Well, for our women and children, especially those vulnerable children, the government of Guyana, through the Child Care and Protection Agency, we have implemented a number of programs. Of course, you're aware that we have implemented based on key pieces of legislation which were enacted to protect our children and also our women. And the key pieces of legislation, especially the Child Protection Act, caters for children who are abused, being removed from their circumstances. And right now, we do have more than 800 children who live in institutional care. And the state provides for that. The state provides transportation services to take those children to school on a daily basis. We have to pay caregivers to take care of our children. We have to provide all the key necessities for the children. We also pay tutors who work with the children after hours after attending school. And there are a number of services that we provide to children who we have in institutional care. Of course, our key priority as a government is to lead, and we have implemented minimum standards so that not only the homes that are managed by government are also managed, and those homes that are also managed by private individuals and NGOs having to adhere to those standards. So whilst we are providing a higher and better quality of care, government is expending millions of dollars of resources on the provision of services to support the vulnerable, especially our children. For our women, we do have a number of programs where we are working with single-parent women, training them, providing them with training opportunities, and also access to microcredit through the Women of Worth program. And the Women of Worth program, which was launched in 2010, in May we'll see it being in existence for 5 years. And we do have plans going forward to continue that program with our partner, which is the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry. And more than $111 million in loans have been disbursed. And many of the women who are beneficiaries are now second, third, fourth, and fifth-time borrowers. And this has to do with us having the program in many of the 10 regions, except we have not launched it as yet in regions 1 and 7, because we're doing some assessments to look at the needs in those 2 regions.
Let's back up a bit to perhaps the formation some years back of the Child Care and Protection Agency. How effective this has been, especially as we look to, as you sought to integrate their services into the school system. Of course, there are always significant overlaps between the education sector and the social services sector. Of course, the education sector being one of the social services. The work of the Child Care and Protection Agency, evaluate the work of that agency since its creation.
I would say that, first of all, I'd like to publicly commend the staff of the Child Care and Protection Agency for doing a great job. It is not an easy task because there are numerous reports that are received on a daily basis. I say this because we live in a society today here in Guyana, because of our government's mandate and our outreach to communities and to the populace at large, and working with NGOs, faith-based organizations, and civil society, we have been able to work together to sensitize the populace about the whole issue of child abuse, sexual abuse, gender-based violence, domestic violence, and all the social ills that affect our people. People are now more sensitized, and you might know that from time to time, many reports are received via hotline services that we administer. That hotline service has been very effective, And in many cases, many of our officers who are assigned to various regions are tasked to follow up those reports in the respective regions. We do have some challenges, like everything else, but I will say this, that we have committed to having child protection and social services officers in all 10 administrative regions, and I'm proud to say that the PPPC government has kept its promise to the people of Guyana by ensuring that we provide a good quality of service and having officers placed in all 10 administrative regions.
Let's look a bit at some of the constitutional commissions. Women and Gender Equality Commission, with the oversight of that commission, that umbrella grouping, how has the whole notion of women and gender equality been? How has that improved over the years since the formulation of the commission?
Well, since the formulation of that commission, the commission has been working in accordance with its mandate. It has been working with women in communities also. They have been conducting sensitization activities with women. I know for a fact that they have presented their annual reports of their work programs to the National Assembly. They have done that. And I also know that the Commission has also been participating in international fora.
Of course, there's also the Rights of the Child Commission, but we'll get there.
Yes. The Commission, the Women and Gender Equality Commission, has also been addressing complaints made by women, and they are investigating them. I am also aware that they are working to develop and finalize a sexual harassment policy, which is very key and critical going forward for women, especially in the workplace, in the private sector also.
I'm going to put you on the spot. If you're speaking to a woman, an abused woman, and you're going to make her aware of the workings and her rights and the benefits of her engagements with the Women and Gender Equality Commission, I'll ask you, Minister, to look at this camera and speak to that woman for 30 seconds.
First of all, I'd like to say to you that as a government, we care about all the women of Guyana. And we are here to provide support to you and your family in whatever way we can, to provide guidance to you on your issues and to find alternatives. If it is that you require legal redress, we are also willing to support you in that regard through the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic.
Thanks, Minister. If I could move to the happenings, what obtained in the National Assembly in this last Parliament for the past 3 budgets, and if I could look more specifically at the budget 2014, where approximately $90 billion was disapproved by the combined opposition in the National Assembly. Some of the programs, initiatives included poverty alleviation initiatives. How was your ministry able to rebound from this? And what is your train of thought in relation to this? The first and foremost, the disapproval of some of these initiatives.
Well, I would say that the opposition in disapproving that $90 billion did not act in good faith for the people of Guyana. And one of the key programs that they cut, all the programs were key, I should say, first and foremost, because they cut large projects, developmental projects, that would have seen our country moving forward and which would have changed the lives of the people of Guyana and which will still change the lives of the people of Guyana once implemented. And the poverty program was one of the key programs that were cut in the 2014 budget. And that program is really administered through the Ministry of Finance, whereby our ministry gets releases to undertake several poverty initiatives. And we had to cut back on the amount of beneficiaries because the monies were just not there. And many people come to our ministry for all forms of assistance. We have persons with disabilities who we support because there's a National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, and there are many community-based rehab groups that seek assistance from government for transportation for all the members of their respective organizations within the regions. We have in regions 2, we have in 3, we have in 4, we have in 5, 6, 7, and we meet the cost of transportation annually. One region, for example, the annual transportation cost is about $600,000 a year. And so we were unable to meet all those requests last year because of those cuts. In addition to that, our single-parent women sometimes visit our ministry to ask for small business assistance. They too suffered. And we have other examples. We have the Eye Care Assistance Program, where our children whose parents cannot afford to purchase spectacles for them, that cost is borne by the state. Also our pensioners through the Eye Care Assistance Program, and that too was reduced. So what we saw was a decline in the amount of beneficiaries because of not enough funds being made available to the ministry to administer support to the people of Guyana, and more particularly our vulnerable groups.
If we were to speak a bit about the role played by the co-op societies, I know it has been a problematic issue within the ministry, and there has been some expressions of dissatisfaction in the manner with which co-ops were managed. I know the ministry itself did some purging within. Speak about some of the initiatives that the ministry undertook to deal with some of these issues.
Well, first of all, we do have a new head of the co-ops department, and we have sought to have many of the co-ops bring their records up to date. In fact, that is one of the key initiatives in the reorganization of the co-ops department. And more so because many NGOs and friendly societies that are registered with the ministry have not had their books audited, and that is a requirement. So we have had notices in the press, and many of those persons were asked to put their house in order, as we would say. Notwithstanding that, Guyana also has to comply with the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Financing of Terrorism Act, and that is also a requirement. So the co-ops department now has to have a compliance officer who is tasked with the responsibility of monitoring all the co-ops, all the friendly societies, and all those NGOs that are registered in terms of their financial transactions. There is greater scrutiny being placed now because it is a compliance issue.
Okay, I'm going to take you out of the realm of your ministry for the remainder of this interview. In fact, I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone, which is the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Let's speak about the government, the PPPC government, and the services and the initiatives that it has undertaken over the years in the interests of the people. Speak as a minister of not Minister of Human Service and Social Security, but a minister within the PPPC administration.
I would say that as a minister within the PPPC administration, our policies are visionary. And we need to look at where our country has come, where our country was, and to look all around us at the development in every sector. Yes, we've had our fair share of challenges, but I'm quite sure that we have done what was in the best interest for the people of Guyana. And we will continue to do that because as a government over the past 2 decades, we've sought to undertake a number of things. We've sought to repair the infrastructure some 20 years ago, more than 2 decades ago, that was in dire need of repair. And we've sought to transform our sectors. We've sought to ensure that the people of Guyana have a better quality of life overall. And that is what the PPPC government is about. Looking towards a better future, working to build a better Guyana, and working to ensure that the needs of all the people of Guyana are met.
If I'm going to ask you to, in summation, to speak a bit about the overall performance. Perhaps I don't want to put you on the spot to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, but the overall performance of the PPPC administration, and more specifically your ministry. And should you be given another chance, what would you do? Would you do it differently? Would you do the same things again?
I think I would do some of it, but I would also look towards transforming. How could I better the delivery of my program or a particular program in a particular sector? I would look at how it could be better implemented, whether utilizing technology, whether utilizing more human resources, whether looking at creating more jobs, which is important for our country, especially for our young people in Guyana, who are our country's future, looking at ways to create more jobs so that our young people will remain in Guyana and contribute to Guyana's development, looking at providing more skills training opportunities for those persons who are more inclined to be more technical, looking at science and technology, which is key and important to our country going forward, to our country's development. Our country is leading in the whole issue internationally of fighting for climate change to secure the environment. And those are some of the changes I think that as a country and as a nation, we have to focus going forward on. Our environment is important. Guyana is leading in this whole fight against climate change and the effects of climate change. And it also means that we have to have the skill sets. We have to have the requisite support. We have to have the requisite trained personnel to support the development of our country going forward in the future.
You take a look around at perhaps some of the main projects. You've seen some increase in activity in bauxite mining, significant upsurge. Especially, let me speak generally about the extraction sector. You've seen significant infrastructure. You've seen some blossoming of the business community. Are you satisfied that these positives have sufficiently trickled down to the lower rungs of our society, and the government of Guyana has sufficiently ensured that this happens?
Well, I think like every project, some of these projects are now starting, like the president recently commissioned a new bauxite mine in Region 10. And of course, Guyana is open for business. We are encouraging investors to come to our country. But every project takes time to evaluate the success. I would say that we have made progress in some of the sectors, especially in the mining sector. I think our gold production has increased. We've seen more gold and diamond exports and contributing to the GDP of our economy. I think it's about 12 to 14% of exports we had last year, if I'm correct. And I think that those sectors are growing. They're growing because government is also committed to providing incentives to enable those sectors to grow and to expand, to contribute to Guyana's growth and development.
Minister of Human Service and Social Security, Jennifer Webster, I am honored to be afforded this opportunity to speak with you on these issues. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
And of course, I'm your host, Michael Gordon. Thanks for watching this special edition of Political Scope.